The grisly discovery of a Cleveland serial killer's secret. The bodies of 11 women found buried inside and around 12205 Imperial Avenue, the home of Anthony Sowell, who became known as the Cleveland Strangler.
You can smell it as soon as you get on Imperial, all the way down.
Neighbors remember that stench of rotting flesh, so wrongly attributed to Ray's sausage store next door.
And now we say their names. The 11 women, Anthony Sowell's victims: Tanya Carmichael, Nancy Combs, Tishana Culver, Crystal Dozier, Talisha Fortson, Imelda Hunter, LaShonda Long, Michelle Mason, Kim Yvette Smith, Diane Turner, and Janice Webb. More on the death of Anthony Sowell on WKYC.com, and of course tomorrow on 3 News Go.
It's strangling me, telling me, you can scream all you want, you finna die.
It's been 1 year since the bodies of 11 women were found in a home on Imperial Avenue on Cleveland's east side. Tonight, a 5 on Your Side investigation takes you inside a video surveillance system that was trained on the home of suspect serial killer Anthony Sowell. On Your Side Chief Investigator Ron Regan joins us live with every camera and every angle.
The man convicted of killing 11 women got on the stand this afternoon in a bid to save his own life. In a statement to the jury here in Cleveland, Anthony Sowell said he was sorry for what happened. We now have Tracy Carlos's report.
Anthony Sowell died this afternoon in Ohio's care.
He was 61 years old. He was admitted to the end-of-life care unit at the Franklin Medical Center for terminal illness.
This house set on fire yesterday morning in Cleveland's Union Miles neighborhood is just the latest incident that this couple believes is tied to their name.
My last name being Sowell.
Prophet Larry Sowell, cousin of convicted Cleveland serial killer Anthony Sowell, says he and his family have been taunted and harassed ever since police found the bodies of 11 women at Anthony Sowell's house. It's so bad that he asked me not to show his face for this interview.
Someone came to my house about 1:30 at night, a young man, and was making all kind of remarks saying, you just like him and everything. If we go to the drugstore to get a prescription, wherever we go, and we were going, they would say, is that your cousin?
The family finally left their home here in 2010 to try to find peace in another city, but the harassment continued, including numerous break-ins at this house, and now the fire, which Sowell believes could be because of his name.
I'm hurting, I'm trying not to cry, I'm trying not to let my children see me with the blues and crying and everything, but I'm devastated, it hurts.
Arson signs have been posted at the house, but so far the fire department doesn't have a motive or suspects. Sowell hopes whoever did it will turn themselves in, and that people will see him for the man that he is, and not judge him by his name.
For 2 years, in the early 2000s, a foul odor enveloped the Mount Pleasant neighborhood of Cleveland, Ohio. Residents were quick to blame a nearby sausage shop, Paul's. But the stench was actually coming from the home of Anthony Sowell. Between 2007 and 2009, Sowell raped and murdered 11 women, then hid their remains in his home and backyard. The smell of their decomposing bodies permeated the air, causing neighbors to believe there was a sewage leak or an issue with rotten meat at Ray's Sausage, Paul's, which was located next door to Sowell's house. It wasn't until one of Sowell's victims escaped and went to the police with her harrowing story of survival that the killer was brought to justice. The ensuing investigation unraveled a macabre tale and brought local authorities under fire for failing to stop Sowell sooner.
Face was plastered right on. I was just stopped in shock. I really was in shock. You know, my whole body was like trembling because I was looking at the guy that I knew had raped me 20-something years ago. This man stole my life from me.
We're using her nickname, Lisa, and we're not showing you her face. She is 46 now and says accused serial killer Anthony Sowell raped her when she was just 23. The night started, she says, with the two of them having a couple of beers outside an apartment building that used to be here. It was called the Animal House by police because it was known for trouble. The two walked a short distance to this spot where a Big Boy restaurant used to be. That's where she told police she was raped.
Once I came up from using the bathroom, he was like doctor. He was a different person. He wasn't that same person that gentleman I had met.
She is convinced that she was going to die that night. So she says she told Sowell she would not tell a soul.
I convinced him to go back and get my clothes. I told him we could go over his house or whatever. But when he turned around to get my clothes, I jumped that fence and ran. And have on nothing but socks and shoes.
She says that night caused her to become hooked on drugs and alcohol for years. She moved to South Carolina, and now she says she's been drug-free for 6 years. She says she has turned her life around. A few weeks ago, she walked into the East Cleveland Police Department and filed a police report about the rape, and now finally has some closure. The rest could come in a Cuyahoga County courtroom.
Justice will be served one way or the other because God is the one that's going to punish him.
Now, we don't know if these latest allegations against Sowell will play a role in his upcoming trial. In the newsroom, Tracy Carlos, News Channel 5.
In the end, the quote-unquote Cleveland Strangler was convicted of 11 counts of murder and spent the rest of his life behind bars. However, the memory of his House of Horrors continues to haunt those connected to this grisly case. Anthony Edward Sowell was born on August 19, 1959, and was raised in an abusive home in East Cleveland. According to Cleveland.com, he began raping his 10-year-old niece, who also lived in the home, when he was just 11.
Sowell, an incredibly dangerous threat to the public. Sowell has been in jail since police found 6 bodies in his home. Since then, 4 more bodies were dug out of the ground, and in the basement, a skull. Authorities say they are widening their search.
We're going to bring in the fire department and we're going to check walls, floors, etc. in that particular residence.
The scene is drawing family members with missing loved ones, and it is drawing the curious.
My expression in my jaw just dropped because I stay right down the street. I wouldn't have never thought nothing like that being in one house. I wouldn't have never thought that.
Now, community leaders are calling for an investigation, asking whether police and health inspectors missed clues, like terrible odors that could have led them to the bodies.
At the age of 18, Sowell enlisted in the U.S. Marine Corps. He served for 7 years and was honorably discharged in 1985. Upon his return to Cleveland, Sowell began racking up a criminal record. His first offenses were fairly minor, involving drugs and alcohol, but he soon turned to domestic violence. Then, in 1989, Sowell bound, gagged, and raped a 21-year-old pregnant woman in his home. He choked me real bad because my body started tingling, his victim later recalled. I thought I was going to die. According to the New York Times, Sowell spent 15 years in prison for the rape. He was released in 2005, but he quickly returned to his life of crime.
For the first time today, Anthony Sowell, who's been sitting in a Cuyahoga County courtroom for weeks, broke his silence, and he told the jury he had a terrible childhood.
I was hit with a cane, broom.
And who are the people that would whip you like this?
Both my grandmother and my mother.
The same jury that convicted Sowell of murdering 11 women will now decide whether he lives or dies for his crimes. Today, in a 30-minute unsworn statement, the 51-year-old told the jury he was sorry.
The only thing I want to say is that I'm sorry. I know that might not sound like much, but I truly am sorry from the bottom of my heart.
For the victims' families, it was not enough. Barbara Carmichael's daughter, Tanya, died at the hands of Sowell.
I couldn't help it. When he said that, I'm sorry, I just couldn't take it. You know, I was sitting up there thinking it's bad to say, only if he had died when he had the heart attack in 07, my daughter and a lot of these other girls would still be living.
Earlier in the day, a social worker testified that Sowell had a dysfunctional family, and the physical, emotional, and sexual abuse goes back decades. Lori James Towns testified that Sowell saw his nieces and nephews beaten by his mother and grandmother, and that left a lasting impact. Towns testified child abuse is the biggest red flag for adult criminal behavior. Assistant Prosecutor Pinky Carr said Sowell himself was not abused, and other people in that house did not grow up to be serial killers.
Anthony Sowell's first known victim in his violent murder spree was a 38-year-old woman named Crystal Dozier. a mother of 7, Doiser had started struggling with drug addiction, as correct about some of his victims, who weren't even known to be missing until their bodies turned up on his property months or even years after their murders. However, many of his victims were reported missing, but the police didn't take their family seriously. Rachel Dissel, a former investigative reporter involved in the case, told A&E many of the families went to the police, and the police wouldn't even take a report. Police would tell them that if they're using drugs, they'll come back home when they're ready.
Well, at first, you're astonished, you know, that anything of this magnitude. If it's just one situation, you're astonished and you're not happy about it. But now as you get more and more in depth, you start to get angry. Knowing that my office actually called the health department in 2007 to say that one of my residents called in and said there's a foul odor across the street and it smells like a dead body. And to know that from 2007 to this present day, that we still got this tragedy going on and we're still taking bodies, it makes you angry. So I don't think it's time to finger point at the police or the health department or my office or anything like that. Clearly the ball was dropped. And therefore, we've got to get to the bottom of what happened here to ensure that this never, ever happens again. I don't know the guy personally, but I can tell you behind talking to a number of residents and talking to a number of businesses, he moved around a lot. I mean, he went from pillar to post, so to speak, around this neighborhood. So he got around. So I think it's important that we look at all the empty places that we got here. We got situations where we know that something happened here. We know that he's a part of it, and we need to do a thorough, independent investigation to figure out what happened. What has to be understood is this is not some desolate area. This is not some rural area. There are homes and people that live all around here, and there are businesses that are right next door. So it's a tragedy that something of this magnitude could happen right in the middle of a neighborhood that's vibrant and that's moving forward.
It's unknown how many women could have been saved had the police listened to the victims' families. Unfortunately, it wasn't until October 2009 that Sowell's horrific crimes were uncovered. In September 2009, a woman named Latondra Billups went to Anthony Sowell's home after he promised her drugs. Once she was inside, he beat her, raped her, and choked her with an electrical cord until she passed out. Thankfully, Billups regained consciousness and Sowell actually allowed her to leave. However, perhaps because she was worried about the drugs in her system, or perhaps because Sowell had threatened her, Billups didn't immediately go to the police with her story.
Or hallway where one of his alleged victims says she fought for her life.
He just started strangling me, He said, "Please stop screaming, you finna die." And I'm gasping for air and grabbing at his face, and clawing at his face, clawing at his eyes.
42-year-old Gladys Wade says she was desperate to escape.
I was trying to get out, I started screaming.
What were you screaming?
Help. And then he came in and he started punching me in the face. And told my son, "Take your clothes off."
In a photo taken by police, you can see a cut on Sowell's head and scratches on his face. Still fighting, they fell down these stairs while Sowell allegedly continued to choke her.
He's strangling me, and I'm almost gone.
What do you mean he's strangling you?
Choking me to death.
What is he using?
His hands.
All right, and where are his hands?
Around my neck.
Her testimony was so emotional, she could barely bring herself to look at Sowell when prosecutors asked her to identify the man who attacked her.
Oh, God. Right there.
And where you looked, is that person the first one, second one, or third one? Say it again into the mic.
Right there.
Okay.
And incredibly, she said she was able to escape by falling down the front steps and running out the front door. She did file a police report. Police came by the Sowell home. They took crime scene photos. They took photos of Sowell's injuries. They interviewed him, but they eventually concluded that there was not enough evidence to charge him with a crime. He said that Wade tried to rob him. Now, also, later tonight at 6 o'clock, I'm going to have a lot more on a second victim that also came forward today and said that Sowell attacked her. And of course, you can find a lot more on all of this on newsnet5.com.
A month later, on October 20th, another woman named Shawn Morris went to Sowell's home to drink and do drugs. She initially left without incident, but she realized she left her ID behind and had to turn back. At that point, Sowell attacked her. She escaped by climbing out of a third-story window, and Sowell's neighbors called 911 to report a naked woman falling from the home.
Well, Danita, those cameras were originally installed to catch neighborhood drug dealers on tape. Now, Sowell's defense attorneys are spending $15,000 of your tax dollars to pore over them. Well, in the next few minutes, you'll see the exact recording system that's believed to have captured a woman's desperate escape and a lot more.
This picture here probably caught the young lady jumping off the porch and him jumping off after her.
Ray Cash can see Sowell's home on this screen. He has not one, not two, not three, but 5 surveillance cameras mounted atop his sausage company, all right next door to Sowell's home. And the video, rolling 24 hours a day, is crystal clear.
You can see a lot. You can see everything on here.
Prosecutors seized the tapes as evidence, and court records show Sowell's attorneys want to review 2,000 hours of video. So what can those cameras see?
This is the dumpster right here, and this is the fence to the backyard. This is around the area where they found a couple of those bodies back there. The dumpster could possibly show him maybe throwing the body in there, you know, at night.
But it's camera 2 that could be the most revealing. It looks down from this balcony where a woman told police she jumped to escape Sowell.
This is camera 2. Camera 2 is where the young lady, she jumps off this porch here, lands here, and he descends down on her. Luckily, the guys across the street saw it. They called 911 and the ambulance came. And that probably saved her life.
Camera 3 looks across the street at this store where Sowell was often seen buying garbage bags.
This is the store he would go to all the time. You know, when the other owner, when he said that he sold him a lot of bags, garbage bags, this is the store he would go and get those bags from.
And he could have been using those bags.
He could have been using those bags to put those body parts in.
Camera 4 is mounted right above the sidewalk that leads to that dumpster in the rear of the building.
Clearly you could see him moving back and forth during the night. It would be able to pick him up.
Finally, camera 5, right next door to Sowell's home, and looking across the street where witnesses were standing and saw that woman fall last October.
They're standing here, and she would have been right in this corner here. And they said, "What you doing?" He said, "I got this." And he picked her up and took her to the backyard.
Well, Sowell's attorneys believe the tapes could show potential witnesses, and they're billing taxpayers $15,000. That's what it'll take to hire 3 full-time workers to review all 2,000 hours of video. We'll let you know what they find and if your money was well spent.
The bodies of at least 2 women were found in Anthony Sowell's basement. What they found inside on October 29th would stay with them forever. The putrid scent hit investigators first. Then they came across 2 decomposing bodies in a shallow grave in Sowell's basement. As their search continued, they uncovered 4 more bodies in crawl spaces, 4 buried in the backyard, and a woman's skull wrapped in a paper bag and stuffed into a bucket inside. Altogether, they found at least the partial remains of 11 women. According to Cleveland 19 News, Sowell wasn't home at the time of the search, but he was located and arrested 2 days later on October 31st.
Anthony Sowell about the bodies of 11 women they found in his house. For the first time since those 11 bodies were found, we are hearing from Sowell in his own voice.
The riveting video is a key piece of evidence against the accused serial killer.
Hey,
News
how are
Channel 5's Paul Kiska is outside the courtroom for us tonight. And Paul, Sowell appeared to be pretty defensive in those tapes.
Defensive and evasive, but he did tell police that he heard voices.
Anthony, you're a smoker? Yes. You want some coffee and a cigarette?
At first, Cleveland police call him Anthony, then Tony, give him cigarettes and coffee. Sowell starts to open up, tells police a girlfriend broke up with him, broke his heart a couple years earlier, and that's when the rage and voices started.
I spent the whole weekend just crying.
At that point, you feel when you weren't able to control your fear, your anger, or whatever.
That's when I just started hearing things, yeah. I mean, it was just, I just like had a breakdown or something.
Police tell Sowell their questions are about to get a lot more serious.
And probably the next block of time, 15, 20 minutes, it might be the most important 15 minutes of your life.
Detectives ask Sowell about bodies found in the house on the 3rd floor.
Upstairs on the 3rd floor we stay. We found some folks up there.
Then the most riveting part of questioning. Sowell said the voices got worse. Bad things would happen. Police wanted to know how often.
But with these other people, you got the voices.
Yeah.
And what did the voices say? Can you remember?
Say, it's bad. That's all I can.
There's bad voices?
Just bad people.
Is it one voice or is it more than one?
One voice.
And it's...
I don't know if I'm dreaming. I don't know.
How many times?
I don't know.
Can you guess?
No.
If you had to throw a number out there, what would you say? Like 10? 20?
No.
Not that many. 15?
No.
So between 10 and 15?
Yeah.
Maybe? To the best that you can think.
10.
So we'll say
10, 15, yeah.
10 and 15.
Now, Sowell told detectives from the Cleveland Police Department that the voice he heard he thought was a ghost, but he never admitted to hurting anyone. Now, coming up at 6 o'clock tonight on News Channel 5, you'll hear Sowell talk about how he only hurt women in his dreams.
The true extent of Anthony Sowell's chilling crimes would soon come to light during his highly publicized trial. Sowell's neighbors were horrified to learn that the terrible smell they had complained about for years wasn't coming from Ray's sausage after all. Pause. Ray Cash, the owner of the shop, testified about the odor at Sowell's trial. Because we're in the meat business, pause, people assume that it was us, he said. But when they walked into our factory, there was no smell like that. It was always outside. Cash said that he even spent over $20,000 on new plumbing fixtures, sewer lines, and grease traps in an effort to stop the stench. Still, learning about the horrifying true source of the smell led to no feelings of vindication for Cash. Other residents were appalled at the Cleveland Police Department's handling of the case. The first body recovered from Anthony Sowell's home to be identified was that of Tonya Carmichael. She had vanished in late 2008 after telling a friend that she was going to run errands. Carmichael's family reported her missing to police, but officers stereotyped her as a black drug user and failed to follow up on leads, such as Carmichael's car being found in Sowell's neighborhood.
Back in 2009, Cleveland police were investigating a rape case against Sowell when they searched his house on Imperial Avenue and discovered 2 bodies. Over the next several days, investigators worked to uncover and identify the remains of 11 women.
Crystal Dozier was his first victim, and moments ago I spoke with her mother, Florence Bray, who was just herself hearing the news tonight. Bray says she will rest better tonight knowing Sowell is gone.
He's been in jail for the longest, and my daughter dead and been buried 12 years, and I'm glad he did. I ain't sad. God is a just God. He did what he's supposed to do. He took that evil person out of this world, and there's a special place in hell for him too.
His home was demolished in 2011, and in 2021, a memorial called the Garden of 11 Angels was unveiled on the site to honor the forsaken victims of the Cleveland Strangler. Alright gang, so there you have it. Had to take y'all down some true crime. You know, everybody check up on your loved ones. You know, you never know what's going on. You don't know what a person is going through, or even if they still breathing. Hey, but until next time, Driller Gang, you already know what it is. Make sure you like, subscribe, get into that comment section. Let's have a conversation about this. This was a crazy story, right? Yeah, we're gonna do more stories like this from Cleveland, man. It's a lot of stuff coming out of the land that y'all don't know about. But anyway, watch the next video. Gang!